We often remind parents that no one loves your child as much as you do, and no one knows your child as well as you do. You are the expert on your own child. However, some people wonder if there are caveats, such as, does homeschooling work for special needs or learning different kids? Let's talk about it. You're listening to the Homeschool Made Simple podcast. This is a podcast to help you homeschool simply, inexpensively, and enjoyably. Carole Joyside has been helping families homeschool for several decades now as a speaker and homeschooling consultant. If you want to work with Carole to customize your family's approach to this method, you can book an appointment at homeschoolmadesimple.net/customize. Her schedule fills up quickly as we move into the summer, so be sure to book an appointment today through the link in the show notes. Today, we are talking with a family who pulled their learning different son out of public school to learn at home and how their whole life changed for the better. Listen in.
We are sitting across the screen today with our friends David and Audrey Ryan. They live near Austin, Texas, and we are so excited to speak with them because when Audrey and I were consulting a couple years ago now, Audrey, 2 years ago, I just said, we need to do a podcast about your family story. And so we're just so delighted to have David with us, King David, I'm going to call him. And I want them to just tell their story to us, and then I'll just kind of draw some things out. But David, why don't you start? Just tell the story of your family, your life briefly, and what brought you to today.
Yeah. So we were in Lakeway, Texas for about 9 years. We moved there and paid the really high property taxes with the idea that we wanted our unborn children to grow up in the best school district around.
Yes.
We didn't have kids then. We shopped knowing that kids were a part of the plan and found a house and what we were told and believed was a wonderful school district. We stayed there until our son Colin was in first grade, and so he went through pre-K there. He was born with a genetic disorder that took several years to diagnose. It's called Campbell-1 disorder. It's very rare, and so Lakeway schools were great with the services that they offered in pre-K. The ARD meetings helping us find help to figure out what was going on. And all of that was really good. And then he started kindergarten during COVID. And
that was a joy.
Yes. He started at a brand new school. It was an elementary school that it was their first year opening. Lots of things that we saw at the open house that were pretty eye-opening that happen in public schools now, as far as people on staff that I don't want to explain to my 5-year-old child why men are wearing dresses in the library, to be frank. That was the first kind of sound the alarm. And then in kindergarten, we were getting reports that were just like happy face, sad face, crying face. It was all about the mood that he was in each day. It wasn't about what they were working on in school.
Yeah.
The challenges that he was having, what we could do at home to help. And then COVID was kind of an eye-opener for our family. I've always been somebody that wanted more space to live on some land and kind of be outside of the city. Homes being built, people moving in, schools being built, classrooms filling up, and so we decided to move about 25 miles west and bought 7 acres and put our kids in Johnson City public schools. At first, Johnson City was awesome. Their school system's great.
It is a great system.
Nothing bad to say about them at all. You know, prayer at the flagpole and community prayer at homecoming parades, and they don't shy away from the belief in God and saying the Pledge of Allegiance, and a lot of really good things that we loved about the values of the school system. We were really blessed to have a teacher's aide assigned to Colin that was, and it has become a very close friend of the family.
Yeah.
She was awesome, but the thing that did not change was the expectations for the kids at, at a first grade level.
Yes.
Um,
You mean they were unrealistic for Colin, or what? Yeah.
for Colin, tons of stress. So part of his Campta 1 disorder is low tone and slow processing, and so
Okay.
the more we learned about what he was dealing with on a daily basis, the clearer kind of his frustration and concern and nervousness getting ready to go to school every day
Yes.
became. Coming home with shirts that he chewed on just from being nervous throughout the day, and spelling tests every Friday. He would absolutely throw a fit, sometimes pretend like he didn't feel well as early as first grade. And like, this isn't normal. What do we do? How do we help him?
Yeah.
I think the crux of it was towards the end of that year that we decided to homeschool. He was even making some comments on the playground about feeling like he was a bad kid and that he wasn't good. And he was talking about a little bit of self-harm that put him in the principal's office 3 times. And they were calling me to have him evaluated by a psychologist, a child psychologist. So his stress level had escalated to this point before we met you and had studied your method, that we really felt out of control and sad about the situation. That's what pushed us to explore other options.
Yes.
What even our daughter has benefited from now. But the amazing thing is that it has gotten to such a low point in his history, but his high point now is undescribable. So the 180-degree turn has been nothing short of a miracle.
Wow.
But that's where we were at that year.
Yes. What changed, or what are you doing differently, or what was the turnaround for Colin and for your family?
Well, the school system has, and you've spoken about this, they have benchmarks that they need to hit. And with Colin, he's a slow processor. He is a late reader. And you've pointed this out before, research shows that later readers tend to be more nature driven. And, he would pay attention to bugs and dig holes for hours like a lot of boys. And his teachers and aides and his whole team, at his ARD meetings, there were maybe almost 15 people around the table. A lot of people willing to help him. Speech, OT, PT, child psychologist, math tutor, reading tutor. They had so many people supporting him, and he's one of those kids that can really wrap people around his finger. His heart is such a golden heart. But, it was this team of people that were all talking to him about catching up. And so he spent much of his time in special classes or with different aides. And he knew that was different. He knew that something was, quote unquote, wrong. And so it really was weighing on his self-esteem and making him want to push back from learning in general, because he was adopting this attitude towards learning that I'm not good at learning.
Yes.
And so,
yes.
We consulted with you. It was actually only a year ago. We went on this journey 1 year, and in the amount of time, he has changed so much. But when we first discussed his issues, you said, I don't even care if you do school for a little bit. Step back, read some great books. And you gave me some wonderful books. We've been reading these hunting books, and The War That Changed My Life is currently what we've been reading.
Love that book.
In a year's time, we have listened to or read 49 novels. And
what? Yeah. And actually, The War That Saved My Life,
The War
right?
That Saved My Life, yes.
Yeah. Okay, which was a perfect book for Colin.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he's just now gone back to reading, but now he's reading with a smile. And we're working on our readers with with Sing, Spell, Read, and Write, and they're shorter words, and he's sounding them out. They were having him do a program to catch up that was just memorizing the way the words looked so he could get by until he could actually learn to sound out later. But we've stopped putting him on this conveyor belt of excellence.
The flashcards.
Yeah, and our main goal is, like you've said from the get-go, create a love of learning in your children. And I'm starting to see his face light up when he's sounding out words.
Oh, Audrey, this is so beautiful.
He's happy.
Yeah.
As homeschool parents, we need to know what we believe and why we believe it. If you aren't grounded in your why for homeschooling, it's going to be difficult to sustain this countercultural way of educating your kids. That's why we've put together a reading list for homeschool parents. This is a free list that pares down the books you need to read so you can easily continue your own education. Think of it as continuing ed for homeschool parents. Download the free reading list for homeschool parents at homeschoolmadesimple.net/parents or click the link in the show notes. Are you ready to jump in and learn more about the Homeschool Made Simple approach? We've bundled our essential teachings together to create the HMS Essentials Bundle. In it, we'll teach you everything you need to know about our approach from the elementary years through high school graduation. This bundle includes 4 key audio resources: a return to our roots of greatness, a literature-based approach to education, begin with the end in mind, and the homeschooling interview. The HMS Essentials Bundle will help you set a solid foundation for homeschooling simply, inexpensively, and enjoyably in every season of life. And the more than 20 pages of book lists will point you toward the resources that we love. Use coupon code PODCAST at checkout to receive 15% off your order. Visit our online store, homeschoolmadesimple.net/store, to get the HMS Essentials Bundle today.
Well, there are so many families with, quote, special needs or learning different children. And very often they're like, well, does homeschool work for our child? Because the powers that be very often will make you feel like, don't try this at home, leave this to the experts. And what would you say to those families?
I would say absolutely go for it. Nobody knows your kid as well as you do. Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest part. So schools, unfortunately, now are trying to squeeze everybody into the same box. They're funded based off of standardized tests. And, just because Colin wasn't reading in kindergarten doesn't mean that he's a smart kid. He's extremely brilliant. He teaches me something about science every single day. And those are things that he's learned on his own, not from us.
Right.
And so we've really embraced and encouraging him to follow the things that interest him, but to learn along the way. And he has a huge love of science and wants to know about different types of bugs and animals. And the reading part, for me, turned into, it was so much stress on the entire family. And the first half of first grade, where it's like, you have a test tomorrow. This is how you prepare for a test. And we're public school kids. We grew up in public schools. And so our brains were, pass the test. Let's get ready to pass the test. And there's just so much more to learning than that. We started off, he and I, reading hunting books. He loves to hunt. Last year was his first year to get to hunt and actually be a part of the hunting. And so he and I, with him being homeschooled, I'd take off work on a Friday and we'd go Friday, Saturday, Sunday, stay in a hotel room. And when we weren't in a deer blind, we were reading books about hunting. And that's what really sparked it. He got so into those stories and he learned so much from them. And now he loves it. He'll bring me a book and say, let's read the next chapter of this. So it's been great.
I would say for parents with children that have a gamut of needs, and we are seeing more and more children that have those unique needs, that those children are like any other children, that they do want to learn. There's something, we're built, no matter what kind of needs we have, we are built with a sense of, we want to learn and gather new information. So a parent that is with their special needs child at home can be more specialized with their child than any other team of people, because we're here and we can be intuitive and kind of respond to the cues they give us when they're saying, this is what I'm interested in. And they may have different ways of communicating it, but they have interests. And it's really hard to pick those out when you're a teacher or an aide that has so many other children and so many other things going on. But a parent is right there along with them if they're trained to look for those things and to embrace your approach, which is an unhurried, curious type of learning. Then anyone with a child of a number of special needs can still foster that sense of, I love learning, I can learn, and the freedom to learn, what your own interests are telling you, that your gifts, you can pursue your gifts.
Yes. And it's a tutorial method.
Mhm.
So he's getting one-on-one tutorial intervention when he's with each of you. And you just couldn't pay for a student-teacher ratio of 1-to-1 at any school.
Yeah.
It's the Rolls Royce of education. And it's happening right at your kitchen table for free.
Yeah. And it's a nice thing for parents to know, if you do step off the wheel and do this on your own, that I think the stress level will go down for the child and the parent, because we might have experienced more stress having a kid who was behind, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Because, he gets home and then it's, oh, hurry up, we have to work on these spelling words and these sight words. And we're stressed, he's stressed, we don't have enough time. He won't ever catch up. But he's going to feel really bad about himself until he learns to read.
Yeah.
We're just heaping on more stress. And then you feel like you're not, doing the best job parenting. These parents that are feeling like this, they don't have to feel like this. They can just say stop.
Did the powers that be intimidate you about your decision? How were you able to have that kind of courage and confidence?
Well, when we emailed the principal, she was actually very nice about it. She said, "I'm really gonna miss him a lot. He's a sweetheart," but she said she fully understood. So for us in our school system, it was as easy as sending them a note.
Wow.
And I know that other parents, it's a different process, but for us, it was good. Now we live in a small community, and he runs into his former aides and his reading tutors and math tutors, and they all miss him, but they can't deny the
growth
confidence
in the last year.
That he's flourishing. They can see that he's flourishing.
Absolutely.
Mhm. So they have good things to say about him. They say they miss him, but they can see the difference in him, just the way he carries himself.
Oh, that he is comfortable in his skin.
He's so much more confident.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he'll walk up to anybody and look them in their eyes and talk to them and shake their hand and introduce himself. His confidence is through the roof.
And another thing, he was in OT and PT.
Right.
And my parents are OT and PT, so occupational and physical therapists. Yeah. And so they won't mind me saying this, but he would have occupational and physical therapy at school, and we were concerned, well, is he going to regress if he doesn't get these services? But he's at home, and we live on 7 acres of land. Yeah. And every morning, he's the first one up. We hear the door slam at 7 a.m., and he's off into the wilderness to hunt frogs and
To shoot his latest homemade bow and arrow or
yeah,
crossbow or whatever he's made the
yeah,
day before.
and dig holes. So he doesn't stop moving except to come in and do a little bit of reading or games, and then he's out the door again. And so we haven't had to worry about those things. He's standing much straighter. Some of his weakness was from the confinement of
The desk.
school.
That's right. It's so abnormal for any child to sit in a desk at that age. And I mean, that they expected a 6-year-old or a 5-year-old, whatever he was, to be able to read in kindergarten when all the research shows that it's detrimental to teach children to read too young. And the families, of course, with that. The countries with the highest literacy rates in the world are the 4 Scandinavian countries. We have some of the most dismal reading scores of any, first world country or whatever. And it's ironic that we just keep trying to lower the reading age in our country when there's not one drop of research to show that it's beneficial. And there's buckets of research that shows that it's not. So you have a child that's already feeling like they're struggling, and then you add that burden, which is completely unnecessary and harmful. And it's
Yeah.
whose idea was this, and to whose benefit is this? Well, to the teachers' unions, maybe, but certainly not for the children. It's not child-centered learning. Or as I used to say, every morning, wake up and ask yourself a question. What is the best thing for my child? And he would, if you ask that question sincerely and honestly, you will not go wrong. Like, it would be hard to not know. You know instinctively what's best for your child. But when powers and authority over our children outside the home have a different agenda, a different plan for our kids, and they mean well and they love our children, but there's no research to back up what they're doing. And you know that it's wrong. As a parent, you know. And so my dream is just to empower parents so that they get more and more confident about, just as you said, David, that no one loves their children more. No one knows them better than a parent does. And I just feel like that's the calling that God's put on my life, is to deputize parents, because callings are his enablings. And he will empower us to do the things he calls us to do. And one of the main things he does is calls us to raise our children up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. And that's what your family is doing.
Wow, what an encouraging testimony to hear from David and Audrey about their son, Colin. We will be back next week with part 2 of their conversation with Carole. We hope you'll join us. You've been listening to the Homeschool Made Simple podcast. If you like what you heard in this episode, please leave a rating and review on Apple Podcast or Spotify, or share this episode with a friend. It means so much when you help us spread the message of Homeschool Made Simple with others. Thanks for joining us this week on the Homeschool Made Simple podcast. Remember, Jesus' commandments are not burdensome. What he calls you to do, he will enable you to do. Blessings.